When I started out, I wasn't sure how far I was going to take this. I mean, I've started like a million projects that never really lasted because I got bored of them midway through planning. But 38 chapters, 48 videos, 9 months later, here I am. I cannot begin to tell you how much Pony Point of View means to me. I first started it around 2013 when I noticed Dark World in the featured box. My fascination with AUs led me to give it a try. I then proceeded to hyperfix it over it for the entirety of 7th grade, and even now it's my go-to MLP fic. It encapsulates what drew me to the show so well, while also introducing me to a lot of tropes I didn't realize I loved. And Dark World in particular has one of my favorite villains ever. Like, actually, I've drawn Eclipse on so much math homework you would not even believe. It even introduced me to 2 of my favorite pieces of media. I started Madoka because I knew Dark World had a lot of allusions to it, and I started Persona 4 because I fell in love with the cover of I'll Face Myself used in the reharmonized audio adaptation. Even now, 6 years later and able to see its glaring flaws, I still find myself drawn to this damn fic. I've always wanted to do some sort of tribute, some way of honoring the story that crawled into my brain and never really left. The Ask blog didn't really work out, and the visual novel took way more effort than I'd first anticipated. But when quarantine hit and I needed something to do, and I got a new phone with a semi-decent mic, and the Magic Horse Show brain rot hit again, it felt like the time was right. Predictably, I didn't exactly get far before starting to get bored. A minor audio issue in Chapter 5 led to enough frustration for me to almost give up for good. But then I woke up to comments on every video I had so far, and that gave me the dopamine boost to power through editing the majority of episodes 5 and 6 in one weekend. Somehow. And aside from a few ADHD-induced lapses in diligence, I haven't really faltered since then. Somehow. So let's talk about the process, because this is my afterword and I like explaining stuff. I gave myself a 6-day cycle to work with, ensuring a fairly generous backlog on the off chance I did screw up somewhere. I'd go through the chapter with a fine-tooth comb and do all the editing I could to make sure I didn't get tripped up mid-recording by the, lackluster sentence structure of the original, and sit in the garage for an hour or 3 and yell into a microphone about friendship. The recordings would always turn out maybe twice as long as their finished versions because, as you might be able to hear now, I am literally incapable of talking slowly or carefully enough to enunciate. So I threw them in Audacity and spent the next 4 days editing them down, around 15 to 20 minutes of footage at a time, which took way longer than you'd think. And another day spent on arranging the background music. And with the artwork done in the meantime, because that's a whole other ballpark of attention span, I could usually have it done before I went to bed. And another day taking a break from editing and or catching up on what needed finishing, so I'd have time devoted to recording the next bit. All this ensured I was a month and a half ahead by the time the final battle aired. The music was probably one of my favorite parts about doing this, if not one of the more annoying. I have like 6 gigabytes of music saved to a set of folders arranged by mood, including music from pretty much anything I thought would fit, mostly RPGs and Madoka, admittedly. While a lot of tracks were picked as I was editing just to fill space, there were plenty of songs picked out months before I got to the chapter in question. Melodic Pony's cover of Return of Harmony was always going to be a Twilight song, Distant Traces of Beauty is always going to be a Flirt Girl song, Eclipse's appearance was always going to be heralded by as much Madoka music as I could fit, etc. Hell, sometimes I'd hear a song for the first time and immediately note a place for it in the doc. I tried my best to stick to what references I knew about, and added references to things made afterwards when I could. I always grinned a little when I saw a spot for an Avilius song, because seriously, there are so many parallels to that series, what the heck. Probably the hardest part for me was convincing myself I couldn't just play the same 5 songs over and over, because it would get really boring, but damn if I wasn't tempted to just slap I'll Face Myself over every post-fight scene. And to answer your question from Ode to Dawn, Alex, it was either Respite or another cover of Dearly Beloved, and that song was already in there twice. Art was the other thing I really enjoyed working on, and with a few exceptions, I usually had an idea of what I wanted to do before I even looked at the chapter. Hell, the game over screen for the Eclipse fight was drawn in May. It really shouldn't be surprising considering Pony Point of View was what inspired me to start drawing more seriously in the first place, but I learned a lot over the course of these 9 months. Mainly, how to shade simply and effectively, and how to do backgrounds that don't make me want to tear my hair out. I mentioned an attempt at a visual novel earlier, and though it didn't really go anywhere, I did use those assets as references when I need to draw some of the original characters here, so have a look. Also, let it be known that I hate drawing Iconoclast. Anyway, enough of all that. I'd like to give a few thank yous, because that is usually what an afterword is for. First of all, Alex Forlorn, for obvious reasons. This fics gotten me through a lot, and it's made me who I am today. I'm not the starry-eyed kid I was before. The story's got a lot of flaws I didn't notice before, and I could admittedly go off on them for a while, but even now, I still think it's one of the most important things I've ever read. I can't thank you enough for giving me this part of myself. Second is my dear friend Kadut, who put up with me ranting about editing issues at 3 in the morning and cheered me on through the entire excruciating process. Thank you for always being there to encourage me. I'm sure I'll get a flurry of heart emojis the moment you hear this, so here's a preemptive lesson 3. And finally, to my oldest friend. Years ago, I tried to read this fic to you, to share this part of myself, before I realized it was way too long for how infrequently we saw each other. I think that, more than anything, was what gave me the idea to try this. I don't know if you'll ever listen through this to the end, but if you have, I'm glad I could finally finish what I started with you. As for what's next, no idea. I'll probably go back to making half-ass covers of Vocaloid songs on this channel, eventually. Maybe do a few one-shot podfics. If y'all ever want to contact me, my Tumblr's linked in the description and my everything else is gathering dust. But for now, thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure.